Okay, welcome everyone. Today's topic is how to get funding for your deals, even if you're a new investor. Okay, so let's dive into it. So we're gonna talk about the basics of financing, depending where you're coming from. Okay, so one of the biggest challenges for funding for most people is two things: having reserves and experience. Okay, so those are the two things that are going to be challenging for most investors. So we're going to take different examples and then how we can secure funding for the deals. Okay, so the biggest challenge, obviously, that everyone is facing today is not finding enough properties, inventory being low. And even if you find properties, you still need to make sure that the numbers make sense, whether you're going to do a flip or a rental. So, number one obstacle is going to be making sure that you have obviously a great deal. Okay. The reason why is because for funding, we're going to be using primarily asset-based lenders. So you have to have a deal that makes sense, else funding is not going to happen, okay? Because they're gonna run some ratios on the property. If it's gonna be a buy and hold, they wanna make sure that it cash flow, that you still have about 20% surplus in cash flow after all the expenses are paid off. So now let's talk about your options. What options do you have to get funding? It's going to be very simple. We're going to ask you about your background, okay? So primarily we have two kinds of professionals. People who have a W-2, right? So meaning a 9 to 5 job. People who have a 1099, okay? So they're self-employed. They don't have steady income. It could vary depending on their job. It could be commission based, right? So this is going to play a big role. Second thing that is going to make a difference on your funding that we're going to talk about is your FICO score. What is your credit like? Because to lenders, some lenders, not all lenders, they relate your FICO score to the likelihood of the loan being paid on time, okay? Whether it's true or not, I'm not sure. But for some lenders, FICO score is important. And number three, so this is number one. Number two, that's the FICO score. Number three is going to be reserves, okay? Why reserves? Money in the bank, okay? You need to mitigate the lender's risk. How are you going to mitigate the lender's risk? When you get a loan, they want to make sure that at least the property or the deal is going to be able to cover for expenses. Let's assume that it's a buy and hold, a rental property. So your rent should cover for all the operating expenses and you should be able to cash flow. So the bank, the lender, wants to make sure that not only are you going to cover all your expenses, but that you will also be able to have 20% surplus of it. Now, the reserves, if it's an interest-only loan, they want to make sure that if for whatever reason you lose your tenant, right, and you have a vacancy, let's say in the fall through the spring, 3, 4, 5 months, worst case scenario, right? It's not likely, very likely to happen because right now rental market is super strong, right? But they always play by the book. They have certain rules for vacancy ratios, so they want to make sure that you have enough reserve in the bank to pay interest only loans for the next 3 to 6 months. Okay, 3 to 6 months. So as far as reserves, they want you to have at least 5,000 or so in the bank just to cover the mortgage expenses. 5,000 in reserves. Okay, 5K. They want to see that. Now, when it comes to now buying a property, okay, now let's address each individual case and step by step. So if it's, I'm gonna go back to when we started, right? And I'm gonna give you my example. I'm gonna give you somebody else's example and what avenues and options you have to secure funding, Okay, so number one, we're gonna go back to the most important aspect, right? You've got to have a property that makes sense financially. That is step number one. Now, when you have a deal or a property on the contract, you need to know or have a really good idea what your exit strategy is going to be, whether you're going to flip or whether you're going to buy and hold. Because the lender will want to know that up front. They want to know, okay, what are you going to do with the property? Why is that important? Because, let me give you an example. If you're going to flip the property, then at that point, the FICO, it's not as important, okay? Why is that? I'm going to tell you what role your FICO score plays in funding. When you're going to purchase the property, okay, your FICO is going to determine the terms of the loan, primarily interest rate, okay? So if you don't have like a perfect credit score, then you won't get the best interest rate, meaning the lowest interest rate. If you have a really good credit, then you're going to get the lowest interest rate. Okay, so that's when it comes, plays a big role, right? The FICO score on the upfront purchase. Now, if you're going to flip the property, then you don't need to have a refinance to pay up the purchase loan, right? Because you're just going to sell the property. When you sell the property, you pay off the loan that you got to purchase and rehab the property, and boom, you're done. So FICO score, it's not as critical when you're doing flips because you're in and out fairly fast. Now, when you are doing a buy and hold, it's a different ballgame, okay? Now your FICO score is gonna be very critical. Why? Because let's assume that you have a great deal that is going to cash flow, right? So the bank is going to give you the money for the purchase. And we're going to talk about the type of funding that you're going to get depending on your background. For now, I'm going to say the bank, right? But then I'm going to go into more specifics and the type of lenders that you're going to be pursuing. So for a buy and hold, you're going to get the money for the purchase. They will have you have some skin on the game. So they're going to ask you, most lenders, to have 10% down, okay? So if the purchase price is 100,000, they want you to put 10% down or $10,000, okay? And the good thing is that the asset-based lenders, meaning lenders that look at the deal, not so much at your profile, then they're going to say, well, if you are going to buy and hold the property, now we really need to watch for your FICO score to be 680 or greater. Why is that? Because when they give you the money upfront for the purchase and the rehab, then you're going to complete the rehab, you're going to get it rented, and then at that point, what happens to the loan they gave you? You have to pay that off because those loans are short-term loans. They're going to give you a loan for the purchase and for the rehab, but they're about 6 to 9 month term. Hopefully, you're going to get the deal purchased, rehabbed, and rented in less than 4 months, okay? But let's assume that you completed the project and then you're able to rent the property. At that point now, you need to refinance, meaning switch that rehab loan into a rental loan, meaning refinance to pay that expensive loan because that upfront purchase loan is going to be on the high end. So you're going to get anywhere from 8.5% all the way to 12% interest rate. So it's expensive money, but it's okay because it gets the job done of you getting a property, getting the property rehab. So it's okay. Everyone wins. But now, if you're going to keep the property for 30 years, you can obviously not afford to pay a 12% or 9% interest rate for forever, for 30 years. So, so now what's going to happen at that point? Then they're going to look at your FICO score being 680 or higher. Okay, if you don't have the 680 or higher, then it's going to be more challenging to find a lender that is going to help you refinance. Okay, um, so that's the new regulation, and these are laws established by the government, right? Because they don't want to go back to what happened in 2008. So they want to make sure that you do have a good FICO score of 680 and above. When you do have that FICO score, then you won't have a problem with the refinance. Okay, the refinance is going to be super simple. Okay, so now let's talk about if you're going to wholesale the property. If you're thinking about wholesaling, the good news is that you don't need to worry about funding because you never have to purchase the property. All you're doing is getting the property in the contract, and then you're reselling the rights to the contract to an end buyer. So you never need to worry about funding. So if you're thinking about wholesaling, don't worry about that. So this funding topic applies to investors who are interested in flipping and doing rentals. Now, let's talk about and focus on your background. Most professionals like you have either a W-2 or a 1099, okay? Or you may have nothing, okay? Three cases apply. So if you don't have a W-2, what are your options, okay? So when you don't have a steady income, right, that you have your, let's assume you're commission based, you're a contractor of some sort, you're getting paid based on performance. So when they don't see a steady income, it's not a deal breaker. They just want to make sure that you have reserves, okay? Now, how much reserves do you need to have to purchase a property, okay? When you don't have a steady income, they're gonna ask you for 30 to 40,000 in reserves. Yeah, you heard me right. So they're not gonna be low, okay? They're gonna be 30 to 40,000 in reserves. Now, they have this ratio, right? So they want to make sure that your liquidity is gonna be equivalent or is gonna be directly correlated to how much you can afford to buy, okay? So in this case, they're gonna take your liquidity and they're gonna multiply these times 3 or 4. So if you have, let's say 40,000, they're gonna give you about, actually 4, not 3, sorry, it's 4 or 5. Okay, Gigi. So 4 or 5 times. So if you have 40,000 and you multiply that times 4, they're gonna give you a credit line for 160,000. Up to $200,000. Okay, when you have 40,000. Okay, those are just ratios that lenders have. So it's super important to have the reserves when you have a steady income. When you have a W-2 job, then the reserves requirement are the same. So the requirements are exactly the same. They want to see reserves. They want to make sure that you are able to buy properties with the reserves. No, Gigi. Okay, so now what happens if you don't have a job, right? Then they still want the reserves, right? So they're going to look at the deal, but you still want to have the reserves. So if you don't have the reserves, the next possible option that you have is a partnership, a joint venture. And that's how we've done many deals, okay? We've done a joint venture agreement. So when you do a joint venture agreement, you want to find a partner that is interested in only being the money or the capital investor, okay? So they're gonna bring the money, and guess what? When somebody brings the money, then you need yourself to be in charge of the entire project. If you're finding the deal, you're gonna be in charge of the rehab, and then you're gonna be in charge of selling the property, either yourself or you hire a real estate broker, okay? So that's the typical arrangement. When you don't have all the pieces, then you have to partner up, okay? So that means if you don't have the reserves or the money, then you're gonna need to find that partner that does have the reserves, because there's no way around the reserves, okay? Lenders expect you to have those reserves. So that's been a deal breaker for many investors, okay? Just to get their foot in the door. reserves has been the issue. So that is why at the end of the webinar, I'm going to present um, a new project that we're working on to help overcome that obstacle for most investors. Okay, now let's assume that you do have the reserves, right? Then what options do you have for funding? Whether you're a W-2 or 1099, you have two options. Either you go the hard money lender route or the private money lender route. Now, what's the difference? They're both asset-based, so they're going to be looking at the deal itself. As far as terms, it's expensive money. Interest rate on the hard money lender could be a little bit lower, so probably 9 to 12, depending again on your experience, FICO score, and reserves. And then for private money lenders, the rate is higher, so it's going to be somewhere in the 12%. Okay. Now, what's another difference between the two of them? Hard money lenders versus private money lenders. Hard money lenders are big institutions, right? Like Renovo, Barnett Capital, Constructive Loans, versus private money lenders. They're individuals like you and I. The only difference is that they chose to be passive in real estate. So they want to lend their money in exchange for a return. Okay. Now, another big difference is that with hard money lenders or institutional money, you always have to have a down payment, 10 to 15%. They need you to have skin on the game, and they're going to give you the money for the rehab, but they won't give you the money all up front. They're afraid that you're going to just run away, spend the money, never finish the rehab. So they're going to give you the money in installments based on the progress of the rehab. Whereas with a private money lender or the individual, they can give you the money upfront for everything, and you don't need to have skin on the game. So they can give you 100% of the rehab, 100% of the purchase all upfront. They'll just wire the money to the title company. So that's the biggest difference. So now, which route should you go if you're a newbie, right? And I'm going to tell you, based on our experience, when we started in real estate, I had lost my job, so I didn't have a job. My wife had a W-2, so we decided to go the route of the hard money lender for two reasons. To get a lower interest rate, somewhere in the 9%, even though we had to put money down, but we did have the reserves, okay? Now, we've done deals with private money lending and paid more money in reserves, but our reserves were low. We did not have the reserves that required. We didn't have the 30, 40,000. So we decided to go the private money lending route. Even though we paid higher interest rate, 12%, we chose to go that route. Why? Because we didn't have the money. And sometimes we just didn't want to put money down. So we ended up borrowing the entire loan amount, okay? Now, when you borrow the entire loan amount, that's interest only, okay? Either hard money lenders or private money lenders, it's only interest that you're gonna be paying. So if you borrow $100,000, you're gonna be paying $1,000 in interest only every single month. So if your project takes 5 to 6 months, it's about 5,000. So imagine average purchase price or the sweet spot is under 200,000. So typically or average we borrow about 150,000. So we're paying 1,500 a month just in interest only. Assume the project takes maybe 4 months. That's 6,000 just in interest, okay, carrying cost for the cost of money. So it's expensive money, but guess what? It's totally worth it because that's how you can grow in real estate using other people's money. Now, talking about growth, using private money lenders, it's great, but guess what? Their funds are limited. And not only that, even if they have a lot of money, sometimes they lend out the money and the money is, it's still out there, right? So even though they have notes and mortgages as a collateral for their money, they may not have money to support your growth. However, with a hard money lender, they have tons of money. So they can support your growth, meaning that you can do one or two deals simultaneously. A private money lender will not be able to support your growth. Okay. So we have several private money lenders that we've been working with, and we had cases where we had simultaneous loans, but not from the same lender. Okay. And sometimes, even though you borrow money from them, you pay them off, and then you want to borrow again, they may not have the money available. They may say, well, Hugo, I'm waiting for the refinance, so I might have that money available in 2, 3 months. That is why you need to use both. But if you don't have the reserves, okay, then you're better off finding a partner that does have the reserves, and then go the Harmony lender route. I love Harmony lenders, okay? Because I'm gonna tell you, one of the main advantages of using Harmony lenders is that not only are they gonna be able to support your growth, but they will also be able to refinance the loan in-house. So most Harmony lenders nowadays offer a rental loan. So it's a long-term 30, 25-year amortization loan. All it takes from them is for you to give them a lease, and that's it. You can refinance in 2 weeks. So how does that work? You reach out to the Harmony lender. They're going to run your credit, check your reserves, find out about your experience. They're going to vet the deal. And if everything makes sense, then they will have you put down 10%. They'll give you 90% of the purchase, and they will also give you 100% of the rehab. That's going to be on installments based on your progress. Once you complete the progress, I mean the rehab, then at that point, um, you get it rented. Once you get it rented, all you need to do is submit the lease over to them. Since underwriting has all your documentation or your profile, guess what? They can refinance the loan, meaning pay off the expensive loan, the 9% loan. They can pay that off in-house and then turn that into a long-term, lower interest rate loan. They might give you a 5.5 interest loan. So it's extremely powerful. Now on the back end, you have two options, right? When you work with Harmony lenders, their loan that they're going to give you is, they call it commercial. Commercial means that the loan is given to your entity, not to you as an individual. And the reason why they do that is because it's less risky. Okay, when an individual defaults in the mortgage payment, it can take up to 2 years to foreclose on the particular individual. Why? Because the foreclosure process in Illinois is it has to go through the court system, so it takes that long, up to 2 years. However, if it's under your entity, they can foreclose and take over the property in as little as 6 months. So that is why Harmony lenders are going to refinance under your entity name, and they call it a commercial rental loan. And the interest rate is going to be somewhere in the 5.5%. And for that, you don't need to have a W-2 or a 1099. Okay, they're gonna look at the deal, making sure that it cash flows enough so that you pay off all the operating expenses and you have surplus cash every single month. Okay, that's the biggest difference. The other option is that you go out and look for conventional lenders like the big banks, Chase, Bank of America, and they have the residential loan, right? The residential loan is going to be given to your name. Now, what's the biggest difference? With residential loans, the interest rate is the lowest, maybe in the low fours, upper threes, depending on the rate, the market rate. However, it takes a lot longer to do a residential refinance, and they're going to ask you for a lot of documentation, W-2s, bank statements, tax returns, obviously also your experience in real estate, and FICO score. They're going to be very, very strict. Some of them are asking even over 700 FICO score for a residential refinance. And you can have a limit of up to 10 residential loans in your name. I don't think I've met anyone that has more than 5 residential loans. We have only 2 residential loans. So we've decided to go the commercial route. Why? Because it's quicker. The requirements are super simple, just making sure that you have a lease. And you don't need to have a W-2 like myself. I don't have a W-2 or a 1099, but I've been able to refinance with commercial loans. Okay. Again, commercial loans means that the loan is long-term rental loan under your entity. Okay. Now the question is, if you have a stable job, W-2, great credit, awesome reserves, then it would make sense for you to do a residential refinance. It's going to take a little bit longer. It may take maybe a couple of months, depending on the lender, right? It may take 45 days up to 2 months. Some may take longer. And some of them are going to require seasoning. So from the time you buy the property to the time you refinance, they need you to have 6 months of seasoning. That's something that we didn't like, okay? Whereas if you go the commercial route, they want you to have 3 months of seasoning. From the time you purchase the property to the time you want to refinance, they want to make sure that you have at least 3 months, which will go super fast. You buy the property, you rehab it, by the time you put it on the market, get it rented, then it's been 3 months, right? So as far as seasoning, that's not been an issue with commercial programs. You can have endless commercial loans under your entity. That's the cool thing. And another thing that I love about commercial loans on the back end, that since those loans are under your entity, they will never show up in your credit. So it's not going to affect your income debt ratio. Okay, it's not going to impact your FICO score. Okay, so that's something super, super powerful. That is why I personally love commercial rental loans, and those are primarily given by hard money lenders. Okay, most hard money lenders have that program, and the reason why they have that is because they realized they had you as a customer only for 6 to 9 months, and then they lost you. So they got smart. They said, well, I want to have you as a customer for 30 years. So I'm going to give you the money for the purchase, the rehab, and then once you fix it up and rent it, I will also give you another loan for 25 years. So they have you for life. So that's how these all commercial programs came all about from hard money lenders. Okay. But again, if you don't have a job or 1099 or you don't have the reserves, your option is to do a joint venture agreement with somebody that does have the reserves, because there's no way around not having reserves. Somebody with less than 30, 40,000 in reserves is not going to be able to buy a property easily. Okay, so you do have to have the reserves. Even if you go the private money lending route, they will ask you for reserves. They want you to have, they're going to be less. They want you to have at least 6 months of interest-only reserves. So for instance, if you're borrowing 150,000, you're going to pay 1,500 every single month just in interest only. So multiply 1,500 times 6. They want you to have at least 9,000 in the bank, right? Because if you are, for whatever reason, not able to rent out the property while you refinance, they want to make sure that you do have the money in your bank account to pay the interest-only loan every single month on a timely basis, right? So even if you go the private money route where they can give you 100% financing for the purchase and rehab, you're still going to need to have 10,000 in reserves. So the bottom line is that you're going to need to have between 10,000 all the way to 40,000 in reserves to do especially a rental, right? If you're going to do a flip, then it's not as important. Okay, keep that in mind. If you're doing a flip, you they don't want you to have that much in reserves because you are selling the property, right? As soon as you finish it, you're selling the property. You don't need to have to refinance the property. So the FICO score, again, it's not as critical when you're doing a flip. So the only drawback, obviously, of doing a flip is that you're not building wealth when you're doing flips. You're just making a big paycheck, which is great, right? We should all be doing flips right now. Whereas rentals is going to give you passive income for life. So ideally, you combine those strategies and also add wholesaling. Okay. Um, are there any questions so far? I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what it would take to get funding, depending on your background. Do you guys have any questions?
Yes, Hugo.
Yes, Emery.
So initially, in the beginning of the call, you had mentioned having $5,000 minimum and reserves. For what category was that? I understand for someone who has a 1099, you need to have 30 to 40 in order to get the 200. So where does the 5 grand come in?
Great question, Emery. So when you decide to go the private money route, um, they're going to want to see 6 months worth of interest only. So if you're borrowing, let's say 150,000, let's say 100 for the purchase, 50 for the rehab. So the interest will be 1,500 per month. So they want to make sure that you're able to pay at least the interest only. So 1,500 times 3 to 6 months. So they want to see 4,500 up to 9,000 in your bank account. For their own sake of being paid every single month. Because if you don't pay, then the only option they have is to file a lien pendant, right, against the
Okay.
borrower. So that is why they do need to see the reserves in case that your project is taking longer to rehab, whatever the case may be. They want to make sure that they get paid on time. They give you the money, but they also want to make sure that you're able to pay the interest. So that is why reserve wise, you guys have to have between 5 all the way up to 30,000 in reserves. Now,
Thank
many
you.
of you, no problem, Emery. Any other questions?
Hi, Hugo. This is Tasha. I have a
Hey,
question.
Tasha. Yes,
Um, when you do the refi, with the commercial, and you said it's 3 month seasoning,
yes.
uh, now can you pull cash out when you do that refi?
Great question. Thank you for asking that. Absolutely, you can do what's called a cash out refinance. So the only difference is that when you do a commercial refinance, you can do a cash out. The only difference is that the interest rate is going to be a little bit higher. So instead of getting a 5.5, they're going to give you 5.8, 5.85. But they're going to allow you to take money out of the equity. So you can, we've done that many, many times. Now, in order for you to do that, it needs to meet their equity criteria. So thank you for asking that. So what's the equity criteria to do a cash out refinance? So this is 100%, right? This is 75%. So most lenders, over 95% of the lenders, uh, need you to have 25% in equity in the property, which means that let's assume that we borrow 100,000 for the purchase and 50,000 for the rehab. So 150,000. So this is, all of this is 150,000. Okay, 150,000. Okay. Now, once we purchase the property, we did the rehab. This property needs to appraise for 200,000. This is 200,000. So we end up with 50,000 in equity or 25% equity. Okay, so this will allow you to refinance the property so that you pay off the hard money lender or private money lender. Now, if you want to cash out, then let me give you the example. The property needs to appraise for over 200,000. So let's assume the property appraised for 220, right? 220. So what's 75% of 220? Let me pull up the calculator. So that's going to be 75% is going to be 165,000. Okay. So that means that you can refinance or do a cash out of 15,000. Does that make sense? 15,000 will be the amount that you can take out when you refinance. So not only are you going to be able to pay the Harmony lender 150,000, but you will have the option to take out 15,000 in from the equity because it appraised for higher than what they needed to. Okay, so that's absolutely an option. We've done that, and you know when we do the cash out refinance, when we purchase the property, we need to bring at least 15, 20, 25,000 to closing after all the credits and prorations and so forth. So if we end up with enough equity on the back end, we've done a cash out refinance to pay off the outstanding loan plus take out the money that we put in on the purchase. Does that make sense? So pretty much that's how we recycle money. That's how we pretty much don't run out of money. We're just recycling money by doing the cash out. The only drawback is the interest rate is going to be a little bit higher. So instead of 5.5, 5.8, 5.85. When you take out maybe 10, 15,000. But yeah, no, we've taken out more than that, right? But it's all driven by the appraisal value. So if it appraises high enough, then you can do a cash out refinance. Does that make sense?
It does. And
So
and I
go ahead.
okay. The other question I had was when you said when we um if we like don't have enough reserves and we do a partner, is there a kind of standard agreement that you have with a partner? Like what's that split?
Absolutely. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you that. So you're
Okay.
asking the right questions. In
Okay.
fact, I can give you a quick example of a property so that we put numbers to these. So we bought a property in Mount Prospect for 160,000, and we borrowed I think 35,000 for the rehab. Okay, so all in 195. Okay, we had to put some money down, like probably 20, 25,000. We used a Harmony lender. So our total loan amount is about 170. Okay, so we put more than 20,000. We put down like 25 down payment. Okay, so now the outstanding balance is 170,000. Last week, my wife Frida was telling me, hey, you know what? For some reason, I was looking at some comps in Mount Prospect, and I realized that the property right across, that it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, identical layout, just sold for 330. 330. So I was very curious. So I did a CMA. I mean, I checked some comps around that, and indeed, it sold for 330 back in March 21st, so sometime in March. So now you think about this. If I go to the bank right now, right, I'm gonna say I want to refinance. I want to do a cash out refinance. So they're gonna say, well, how much is the property value or the appraisal value? They're gonna do an appraisal, and it will appraise because we have a comp for 330. So now if we multiply 330 times 75, let me get my calculator. How much is that? So, or can somebody do it? So 330 times 75, 247, okay? 247. That's as much as they can give us, up to 247, because they want to make sure that you still have 25% equity stock in the property. So now look at the difference. So we can technically do a cash out refinance for more than 50,000 easily. And what do we do with that money? We buy more properties. So you don't need to do the cash out refinance right away. We bought this maybe a year and a half ago. So now we have enough equity to do cash out refinances and boom, buy more properties, because with that kind of money that we pull out, we can buy 2 more properties. Uh, Obviously now the mortgage would be for a $250,000 loan. The mortgage is going to be close to, with interest, taxes, insurance, is going to be close to 2,500. So we better make sure that the rent is going to pay off for that, right? So we wouldn't take out more, even if we can. We want to make sure that the tenant is going to pay for not only the mortgage, but anything that we take out in a cash out refinance. Does that make sense? So we want to take out, but not max it out in such a way that the mortgage payment is higher than what the rent is, because we don't want to pay out of money. Even if we were to pay out of money, it would still be a great deal because we have $50,000 in cash today that we can use to buy 2 other properties. So that's just an example of a cash out refinance. So great question. Thank you. Now, as far as the joint venture agreement, we do have 2 kinds. We have for a rental and for a flip. So, in fact, we recently did one. Let me pull it up. I'll show you. So the template is in Chicago Deal Vault. Let me share my screen, and then I'll show you where you can find those contracts. But most importantly, I'm going to tell you what those are. But let me pull up the one that we just recently did. Okay, hold on a second. Perfect. Please note mortgage. Okay, here it is. Joint venture agreement. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to show you where you can find those agreements. So share. I'm going to log on to Chicago Deal Vault. And then we have a tab for contracts right here, contracts and documents. So right here, select the category partnerships agreement. The first one is for rentals, and the second agreement is for fix and flip. Now, when you do partnerships, you want to do partnerships on flips. You do not want to do partnerships on rentals, because think about this. Flips, you're in and out, sort of like dating. Rentals is like getting married to somebody. So you better know that person really well before you enter into a rental partnership, because a rental is a long-term investment. And guess what? The average life change event is about 7 to 8 years. So down the road, if somebody wants to cash out, guess what? You're going to need to buy them out. And to buy them out, you're going to need to refinance. So it could become a challenge to own rentals with somebody else. So ideally, my belief is that if you want to do rentals, you borrow the money. Okay, it's not impossible, it's doable, but it's just easier to do flips on a partnership because you're in and out in the transaction, right? So here is an example. So let me tell you what this is a recent agreement that we just did, like in July, last July. So this was entered between Investments LLCs and Home First, where Home First Realty, on the purchase of this property, okay? And then what this stipulates is the following. So this is the flip, right? So the joint venture agreement, this is for the purpose of buying the property and selling the property for a profit. So in here, contribution of capital. So here you're going to specify who brings the money, okay? First party, and then what the responsibilities of each of the party are, okay? So who brings the money, joint venture decisions, marketing, checking account, right? So you need to open up a separate checking account, and that's about it. And distributions, how you're going to split the profits. Okay, so typically, let me tell you in a nutshell what all this agreement is all about. So you want to, let's go back to the funding. In this particular case, we did a joint venture and we didn't want to put any money out of pocket. In exchange, we found the deal. We are going to rehab the deal, and we're going to be in charge of selling the deal, right? So that's a typical flip agreement, and then we're going to split the profits 50-50. For this particular case, in this agreement, the intention was to flip the property. However, it was occupied. The property was occupied, and we tried to do a cash for keys agreement, and the tenants didn't want to leave. They were happy in the property. They said, we're willing to pay rent. So this turned out to be a rental. It's cash flowing amazing, $500-600 a month, but that was not the intention. So eventually, because this property needs very little rehabbing, less than $12,000. Eventually, when they move out, we'll come in, fix it up, and then sell it for a profit. The equity on this property is about $60,000, so we have enough meat in the bone to make a profit. So we're gonna, once all the expenses are paid off, then we are going to split the proceeds. Now, in the meantime, we have a separate checking account. So all the rents, this property is managed by a professional property management company. They deal with the tenant, lease renewal, and so forth, rent collection. In the meantime, the rent is being directly deposited into that checking account, okay? So if our partner says, hey, can I take a look at financials? Absolutely, boom. We pull up the bank statements. Here are the rents, here are the expenses, and boom, very simple. So you keep things organized, and that's it. Now, while I'm here, I'm gonna tell you, if you use a private money lender, you're gonna need to sign few documents. I'm gonna tell you what those are. So you are going to sign, the most important is going to be right here. So you're gonna find a note. So this is a note, right? For whatever amount that is, you're gonna sign a mortgage. The mortgage is gonna be recorded. So the private money lender secures their investment. So you cannot sell the property because you have a lien on it, so they're going to get paid. Insurance, they need to be the beneficiary on the insurance, and they need to be added into the insurance policy as well. Assignment of rents, should you, let's say, not pay the interest, they're going to take over the rents. So assignment of rents. You have a promissory note. Even though the loan is given to your entity, you're going to become the personal guarantor as an individual, okay? So that's sort of like the promissory note or a guarantee agreement. And then the loan purpose. So you specify what the loan is going to be for, whether it's going to be a flip or it's going to be a rental. And then if you're going to do a joint venture agreement, depending on the exit strategy, we have two agreements for rental and for fix and flip. So it's very simple, that we can help you with this, right? We have the resources to put everything together. Are there any other questions regarding the funding? Any other questions on funding?
Hugo, for funding, for instance, question. So we could just utilize those forms and change them to whatever the appropriate names are on there, or do we need an attorney to review them afterwards?
So great question. Like for instance, we have the templates. We've used those templates. They've been reviewed by an attorney. So we just replace the names and the amounts and the dates and the terms. So pretty much we use the same template, and we just make sure that it gets notarized, and obviously it gets recorded. You know, all the title company does the recording of it, but we've used the same template.
Okay,
We know it protects the lender.
got it.
Some people, let's say the lender, may not feel comfortable using, let's say, your templates or our templates. They say, no, we rather use my attorney to draft the paperwork. We're okay with it,
Okay,
but it's going to cost the borrower about $500 just for the lending documents to be drafted. But we do have the paperwork. We give it to the title. We give it to the lender for their review. But we use our own that we've used in the past several times that were drafted by an attorney. They were reviewed by an attorney.
okay. And have you had any issues in the past where you had to enact, where you had to, for instance, assign the rents because people weren't making payments? Have you had that experience?
No, no, no. So we've been on the borrower
Okay,
side. So if let's say we defaulted, then that would kick in and then they would take over the rents. No, we've not had that case. So that's what the
okay,
reserves are for, right? They want to make sure that at least the borrower is able to pay the interest only on the loan. So they don't need to
right.
do payment of rents and none of that stuff. They want to cover their back.
Got it.
Are you in Florida, George, now?
I still am, yes. So, yeah, trying to wrap up with some of the contractors here, some of the stuff they're doing and doing final inspections, but they're still not quite done. But moving along, hopefully by, the end of the month or probably the beginning of next month, we should be done, hopefully.
Awesome. Great.
Yep.
There's another question on the line regarding from Richard regarding HELOC. It says, do HELOC loan rates compare to private and Harmony lenders? So HELOC rates are going to be lower, way lower than private or Harmony lenders. We have a couple of HELOC loans from SLS, and they are 5.75. So yeah, HELOC stands for Home Equity Line of Credit. So you can actually tap into your equity of your home. Even if you have a primary loan, they can give you an additional home equity line of credit if you have enough equity on it to pretty much pull out cash from it.
Hugo, do you know of any lenders that give out equity lines of credit on commercial loans?
On commercial loans, so we've used SLSnet. We have a couple of loans from them. So it's SLSnet. Right here, this one. I'm gonna put it on the chat. So they've given us home equity line of credits on 2 multi-unit that are commercial.
What LTV do they go up to?
They went up to 85%.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
a
no,
good one then.
yeah, that was very good. And the interest rate is 5.75, so it's below 6 for sure, or very close to 6. So
And
yeah,
how quickly do they get them done?
they were pretty fast, maybe 30 days, about a month.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
That's
no,
fantastic.
yeah, no, reach out to, I don't have a contact person for them because we've done this couple of, a year and a
And
half,
then
2 years.
I have
Go ahead.
another question then. So, for instance, like with the new tax laws and stuff like that, with how much interest you could deduct and with your taxes and things like that, and us being in Illinois, the property taxes are higher. Does it make sense? So when you refinance your primary residence to do it in a commercial loan, and if you pay more in interest and in taxes, can you, I mean, I don't know, is there a way then at that point, if it's in your entity or in your business, to write off the full amount of interest and taxes on it then, or is that not acceptable because
So
you need a place to actually have a residence.
exactly, exactly. You need a place. So a commercial loan won't apply for your primary residence. So they won't give you a loan on the property where you live. It's strictly for rentals. So they will require a lease. So they want to make sure that there's a tenant in there. So they cannot give you a commercial loan on your primary residence.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. Great point. Yeah, in fact, we tried that and they told me, no, Hugh, we can't do this on your primary residence. So we cannot give you a commercial loan on your primary residence. Um, yeah,
Hi, Hugo. This is
yes,
Tasha again. I got another question.
yes.
Can you do HELOCs on your rentals?
Yeah, the two that George was asking about, they're rentals. So it's a three flat and a four flat that we have, one in Wheaton, another one in Elgin. They do have HELOCs on both of them.
So you can
Uh,
do a HELOC on a rental property.
yes, yes. I mean, through SLS, that's who we use for them. So yeah,
Now,
we do have them.
I have another question. I
Yeah,
did a, well, it was my first one actually. We did a rental.
yes,
Um, and back in March when we did it, uh, it was our first, so we had some trials and errors. But once we got it appraised, it just made it. Like at it appraised where we weren't under. But it's
okay,
like now the market is going up, and it
yeah,
looks like the comps now are going up.
right.
Would it make sense, or should you leave it alone? Could you maybe take a HELOC out on it now, since the ARV could possibly be higher than it was in March? Um, or would you pay more to like refinance it if you thought you could?
Absolutely. So right now, even right now, you have the perfect combination to refinance and to do HELOCs. Why? Because of two reasons. Number one, interest rates are still very low, so the cost of money is going to be low for a HELOC, and then the appraisal values have gone up 10, 20%. So you're going to end up with more equity that you can tap into with a HELOC at a very low rate. So it's just the perfect combination, right? So
Yeah,
if you're thinking about um, cashing out on your equity for a rental property, it would be the time right now because interest rates are going to go up next year and prices are going to adjust next year because there's going to be an increase in inventory next year because of the courts opening up. Eventually, all the pending pre-foreclosures are going to start to recycle back into the market, but until next year. So it's going to be an increase in inventory, therefore a price correction, 10, 15%. So appraisal values will go down, interest rates will go up. So today is the time to do a HELOC, for instance, to tap into your equity to stash cash for reserves. So when the right deal comes your way, boom, no roadblocks on funding.
yeah, because I was thinking maybe not to go back in and try to refinance it or cash out, because it hit the mark right enough to pay the private lender back. So what?
Yes, yeah,
So that's where it hit at. We had enough to pay the private lender back, which was fine because that's the main goal. But it's like
absolutely.
now looking at the comps, and I'm like, okay, so now the comps are, it looks like they're going up. Could
Yes,
we possibly then just do a HELOC, um, and instead of going back in and refinancing it, just seeing where there's more equity there now, so will they give us that in a HELOC?
even now we also have an option now that we're talking about equity. I just pull it up on the screen and I'm going to send you guys this link via the chat. It's called Unison. So they are, look at this, co-investing. So they're equity partners. So they can even, the LTV on these guys is even higher. I think they've gone up to 90% or 95. It's something crazy where they can give you the money, sort of like a HELOC, but you don't have to pay it back. You will only pay it back when you sell the property. Okay, so please make sure that you check out Unison. So if you want to max out or cash, this is another great option. Okay, Unison, you don't have to make payments on that. So we did it once with the property, and it's a great resource. So Unison, look into this, how it works. It tells you how it works, everything. So Unison is another way that you can pull out equity, I mean cash from your equity without paying it back, unless you sell it. And then if the property value goes down, so is there equity on the property? So they want to ask you for more. But if it goes up, obviously they're going to make, so it's like an equity partnership. So it's really cool. It's a great concept. We tried it and it worked really well. So
Thanks.
please,
I'm gonna look into that.
yeah, Unison and SLS.
Okay.
Hugo, with SLS, what do they charge for closing costs or to keep the equity line or HELOC open? Do you know?
It was, yeah, I remember it was about closing costs. They were about 1.5%, oh, 1.5% to 2% with SLS. Um, Unison, beautiful, 3%. So for Unison, Frida just told me it's 3%. So yeah, 1.5, 2% with SLS for a HELOC, and Unison, Frida just said 3% closing costs with Unison. Yeah, so right now, if you guys need to tap into equity, you have those options, a HELOC or an equity partner, which is similar to a HELOC. The only difference is that you don't need to pay it back on a monthly basis unless you sell the property. And if the property loses value, they take the hit because they're sort of like an equity partnership. Are there any other questions?
Hugo, my name's Davi. Quick question.
Yes.
Is it easier to do a HELOC, something like an equity partnership, or a cash out refi if you're not a W-2 or a 1099 and can't, substantiate income?
So if you have an outstanding loan on a property, you can do a cash out refinance if you don't have any like W-2 or 1099, because it's going to be based on the equity of the property. So your W-2, your finances won't matter as much. They're going to look at the equity itself on the property. So in fact, cash out, HELOC, or Unison, um, they're not so strict as far as your personal income. They're going to be looking at the equity on the property because that's going to be their collateral.
Okay.
And then, yeah, they want to make sure that if it's a rental property, that the numbers still make sense, that your rents will cover all the operating expenses plus the debt service.
Okay. Okay. I have one rental property that's completely paid off.
Okay.
Um, so that's what I'd be looking to maybe do a cash out or equity partnership or, something like that.
Yeah, look into the equity partnership. We really like this concept because we're not making payments on this unless we sell the property. So this is really awesome. Look into these before you look into
Absolutely.
the HELOC. So Unison,
Absolutely.
I think they're based out of California. Um, yeah, no, check it out, Unison. But yeah, no,
Okay.
right
Thank you.
now is the time to, to have the reserves or pull out cash because again, low interest rates, high appraisal values. Any other questions? And we do have a live event this coming Sunday, okay, at 1 p.m. in Oak Brook. So I hope, I'm going to put it on the chat. I hope you all can make it. It's going to be a great, great event. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of you. We'll do a quick networking, speed networking session. So it's going to be really, really amazing. We've got a lot of confirmations already for people attending. So hopefully you can make it. We'll also live stream the event, but if you can make it in person, it's going to be very, very cool. I'm going to have some cool surprises for everyone. So I hope you can all make it. And we're going to introduce our buying tour on Sunday officially. So that's a way for us to take you on under our wing for the next 6 months. Okay, so you're gonna have exclusive access to our resources, our team, and on top of that, we're gonna help you for the next month to find deals in the areas of interest. So this is gonna be a super exciting project. We're very, very excited. All I can think of, it's this project. You know, I've been on the phone for the last few days, getting the getting the team, you know, ready for this event and for this project. So I'm so much looking forward because we're gonna help you if some of you become, I'm gonna call these deal makers. If you become a deal maker, you become part of this group, then we're gonna help you find those partners, right? If you don't have all the reserves or a missing piece, right, of the puzzle, you don't have the credit reserves, or you don't have the deal, we're gonna help you, right? Find that other partner to bring in what you're lacking. So it's going to be super, super cool. And in fact, George already signed up for it. It's we send you like a 5-page document, George, with the questionnaire. Um, so it's going to be super, super cool. We're super excited. Um, and in fact, for those who become deal makers on Sunday, we're bringing our power team on Sunday. I mean, it's going to be freaking amazing. On Sunday, we're bringing our power team. Uh, some of them are going to be on the road, but they're going to join virtually. So you're going to get to, it's going to be amazing. So I hope you all can make it on Sunday. You're going to learn a lot and then meet amazing people. But in a nutshell, I want to take your real estate investment efforts to the next level, to have you under our wing and show you how we've done it, how we've built rental empire, 34 rentals uh, in the last 2.5, 3 years. So we know what it takes, and now we're putting that together and sharing that with a small group uh, on Sunday. Are there any other questions? If no further questions, I look forward to seeing you all on Sunday, Oak Brook, Doubletree Hotel, 1 p.m. So it's going to be from 1 to 3, a 2-hour
Hey,
event.
I
Hugo,
was gonna come virtually, but now that you said all of that, it's like I need to maybe switch some
Yeah,
stuff around and come in person.
yeah, no, no, no. It's going to be worth 1,000% of your time. Okay, so I'm going to bring really,
Maybe I should come in person then, because I was like,
yeah,
oh, I could do it virtually, but I don't know. The
right,
way
because
the way you said that, I might need to be there.
yeah, you have to be there. I mean, it's going to be super, super powerful. In fact, I hired 2 people, like key players, that they're coming on board on their Home First Realty. That's our brokerage this week. So I'm super excited. They're going to be at the event. People that I'm going to assign to you guys, okay, to help you succeed. So it's going to be super powerful. I mean, I can't wait to see you all in person and for you to network and meet really amazing people who are going to help you become more successful. So yeah, come on over Sunday 1 p.m. So thank you everyone for joining. If you have any further questions, you can reach out to me. I'm gonna post my cell phone, 773-368-4551. Send me a message, and if not, I'll see you Sunday.
Hey Hugo, this is Ram.
Oh, Ram, yes.
For the folks who joined on last Wednesday, you said there would be a discounted price for
Yes.
those. Yeah, can you email and can you email that set of people with the prices for the um, buying tour?
Yeah, of course. So the buying tour, you'll get 10% discount if you join before Sunday. We already have few signups. So yeah, we'll send you the contact information. In fact, I'm gonna have Phil call you right now, Ram, just
Okay,
to get you started on it.
right.
So I know I was on the call last week, but I didn't never hear a price for the buy-in. I thought,
So the early bird, yes. So we came up with 1,800 for the deal maker program. It's not only the buying tour event that we're going to do, but it's going to be more, right? So you're going to meet, in fact, Sunday, our team, our power team, and we're going to get you started. So I'm going to get you connected with the lenders because we want to make sure that all of you are pre-qualified. And if for whatever reason you don't have all the pieces, we're profiling all of you guys, deal makers who join, and then we're going to start to do the joint ventures so that when you come to the buying tour, you guys are all ready. I'm bringing GCs, I'm bringing inspectors um, to view these properties that we're lining up. Okay, so it's going to be super, super powerful. So yeah, we're gonna offer that on Sunday. It's gonna be 2,000 on Sunday, but for those of you who've joined today and before, so we'll give you a 10% discount. And then we're taking only 10 people. So it's gonna be a small group, but we're gonna use all our resources, everything that we use, our model, secrets, shortcuts, everything is gonna be exclusively available to all of you. So there's we're not gonna hide anything from you. We're going to give you all the secrets and resources. And not only that, but help you after that buying tour find deals. So that is why I hired two of the top people that they even own rentals, right? They're going to be sourcing deals, showing you properties. That's going to be critical. We're showing you properties. Even after the buying tour, we're going to be showing you properties for the areas that you specified, right? Because we really want to make sure that you're successful.
and so do you? If we want to do that, we just reach out to you.
I'll have Phil call you tonight, and also Ram,
Okay.
so you can give us your areas, and then yeah, we look forward to seeing you in person on Sunday, because you'll
Okay.
meet the rest of the deal makers. You're gonna meet our team, and we're gonna get the ball rolling on Sunday. We're not gonna waste any time because you make money in real estate when you make offers, you talk to listing agents and you talk to sellers, and that's what we're going to be doing. That's what we're going to be focusing on. So I'm going to be allocating a lot of resources for you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So it's super, super exciting. I can't wait to see you all there. I can wait to explain detail by detail what we are going to, how we're going to help you and how this is going to work out. I'm just over the moon. And you know, the people that I share this project with, they're over the moon. They said, Hugo, this has never been done before. I mean, why has this not been offered before? I said, well, it's just time to really step it up a notch, uh, stretch everything we have. It's going to be a big challenge, but this is just the only way for you guys to become more successful. So everyone, it was awesome joining tonight, and I think we had a great session. We're going to talk more about funding Sunday, and I'll bring some resources, and I'll see you all then, and then we'll get back to you tonight. Ram, um, and Tasha for sure. Okay, if any further questions, just reach out to me. Oh, Mary, I got your message. That's awesome. Okay, so we'll call you too, Mary. That's amazing. So yeah, this is gonna be incredible. I'm super excited. That's all I've been thinking morning, evening. I wake up, I stayed up late. I mean, this is super exciting. I mean, can't wait. So thank you everyone for joining, and I look forward to seeing you Sunday, 1 p.m. Oakbrook. So thank you and have a wonderful evening.